All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today, we're taking a deep dive into the heart of London's Savile Row.
Ah, Savile, that legendary street synonymous with bespoke tailoring, where history and craftsmanship collide.
Exactly. And today's focal point, number 27 Savile Row, a former police station. It's got this really fascinating past and an even more intriguing future, especially with the proposed redevelopment plans.
Oh, it's definitely causing a stir in the world of architecture and heritage.
Yeah, we've got quite a bit to unpack today. We've got an architectural analysis of the proposed new building.
We've got the actual planning application itself, quite a hefty document.
And, to top it off, a news article capturing all the buzz and controversy surrounding the project's recent approval.
Because, believe me, there's plenty of buzz to go around. We're talking about a complete transformation of this site, from a vacant building steeped in history to a sleek, modern office space.
It really highlights that constant tension, doesn't it, between preserving London's heritage and embracing the city's evolution.
It does. It's a microcosm of that larger debate happening in cities all over the world. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of the redevelopment plans, let's set the scene a bit.
Yeah, let's give our listeners some context. Can you tell us a bit about the building itself, this former police station that's about to get a major makeover?
All right, so imagine this. It's 1940, the Blitz is raging, and amidst all the chaos, up pops this purpose-built police station.
Wow, talk about a dramatic backdrop.
I know, right? And architecturally, it's classic modernist style, those clean lines, strong geometric shapes, and that very distinctive Portland stone facade, all hallmarks of that era.
Very typical of that time. But there's a bit of a twist here, isn't there? Something that makes this redevelopment even more complex.
Exactly. The building is actually part of the Regent Street conservation area, so any changes to it have to be very carefully considered.
Ah, yes, the conservation area. That's where things get tricky, right? It's like trying to juggle while walking a tightrope. You have to be incredibly careful not to disrupt the existing balance. So I'm guessing not everyone was thrilled about the idea of demolishing this piece of history.
You guessed it. The council's planning officers actually initially recommended refusing the application, primarily due to those concerns about the impact on the conservation area. And even Historic England, the organization responsible for protecting historic buildings, weighed in.
And what do they have to say?
They were pretty critical of the proposed design, calling it overbearing and not quite in harmony with the surrounding historical context.
Ouch. So, not exactly smooth sailing for the developers from the get-go. But you mentioned buzz and controversy, so I'm sensing there's another side to this story, right? Not everyone was against the project.
Absolutely. While heritage groups were expressing their reservations, local residents and businesses were singing a different tune altogether. They saw this project as a much-needed breath of fresh air for Savile Row.
Interesting. What were they hoping to see happen?
Well, they saw it as an opportunity to revitalize the area, attract new businesses, create jobs, and just inject a bit of energy into this historic but somewhat sleepy corner of London.
So it's a classic case of heritage versus progress, tradition versus innovation. Talk about a clash of perspectives. But let's get down to the brass tacks here. What exactly are they proposing to build in place of this historic police station? Paint us a picture.
Okay, so imagine a sleek 8-story structure, a beautiful blend of glass, timber, and stone, with these kind of curved upper floors that seem to almost dance against the London skyline. It's quite a departure from the existing building.
It does sound quite modern, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But what will it actually house? Just offices?
Primarily offices, yes. And there are plans for a restaurant as well, which could be a nice addition to the area. But here's the twist. They're also including a dedicated space for a bespoke tailor's academy.
Wait a minute, a tailor's academy? That's incredible. It's like they're acknowledging the heart and soul of Savile Row. I mean, I know Savile Row is synonymous with bespoke tailoring, but to actually incorporate that into the development plan is quite something.
It's a brilliant move. It's not just a nod to the area's heritage. It's a full-blown embrace. And from the sounds of it, Victoria Townsend, the founder of the London Academy of Bespoke, is absolutely over the moon about it.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a fantastic opportunity to nurture the next generation of tailors and ensure that this incredible craft continues to thrive. But here's a question that's been on my mind. We're talking about a historic area, a conservation area, no less. So how does sustainability fit into all of this? Because those two things don't always go hand in hand, do they?
You're absolutely right. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
But the developers are aiming high. They're targeting a BREEAM Excellent rating, which is basically like earning a gold star in sustainable building practices.
Oh, wow. That's ambitious. What kind of things are they doing to achieve that?
Well, they're talking about using recycled materials, achieving those stringent greenfield runoff rates, and maximizing green spaces wherever possible, like rooftop gardens and terraces. But get this, they're even committed to reusing a significant portion of the existing facade materials.
Hold on. Reusing that much of the original facade, that's incredibly impressive. But how is that even possible given the new design?
That's where the creativity comes in. We'll dive into the specifics in a bit, but it involves carefully deconstructing the facade, salvaging the Portland stone, and then ingeniously incorporating it into the new design. It's like a giant architectural jigsaw puzzle.
Wow, that's quite a feat. All right, so we've got heritage concerns, passionate locals, a dash of sustainability, and a sprinkle of tailor-made magic. It's like a recipe for an architectural blockbuster. But with all that back and forth, all those conflicting opinions, how did this project actually get approved?
It was a nail-biter, that's for sure. It all came down to a very close vote at the council meeting, 3 in favor, 2 against. Public support definitely played a significant role in swaying the decision. The council recognized the potential economic benefits the project could bring to Savile Row. But there were still some dissenting voices, council members who felt the design was maybe lacking in originality and didn't quite do justice to the historical context.
So even in the world of architecture and urban planning, you can't please everyone. It's a tough job trying to balance all those competing interests.
It is, and this whole saga really brings up a crucial question, doesn't it? How do we, as a society, strike that delicate balance between preserving our past and embracing the future? Especially in a city like London that's constantly changing and evolving. It's a question that goes way beyond bricks and mortar, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a question we grapple with in so many aspects of our lives. But let's shift gears for a moment and dig a little deeper into that sustainability piece. I'm really curious to hear more about how they plan to pull off such ambitious goals in a location as unique as Savile Row. So let's talk BREEAM. Excellent. That's a pretty high bar they've set for themselves, especially in a historic district like this.
Oh, absolutely. BREEAM, that stands for the Building Research Establishment Environmental Assessment Method, by the way. It's kind of like the Michelin star of sustainable building. It's not just about a few green features here and there. It's a whole philosophy. They're looking at the entire life cycle of the building, from the materials to the energy use, even how it impacts the local ecosystem.
So it's more than just like putting a green roof on it and calling it a day. What are some of the standout features of their plan? What are they doing that's really pushing the envelope?
Well, for starters, their commitment to reusing the existing facade is pretty remarkable. And I'm not talking about a small percentage here. They're aiming to salvage and reuse a whopping 75 to 95% of the original Portland stone.
95%. Seriously, that's practically the whole thing. But how is that even possible? I mean, the new building looks completely different from that old police station.
Right. It's pretty amazing. What they're doing is they're carefully deconstructing the facade, numbering each stone, almost like a giant jigsaw puzzle, and then they're meticulously incorporating those pieces into the new design.
So it's like those Portland stone blocks are getting a second life, a chance to continue their story as part of Savile Row's history. I love that.
Me too. It's a fantastic way to reduce waste and preserve what we call the embodied carbon, all that energy that went into creating those materials in the first place.
So they're giving those materials a whole new chapter. But speaking of energy, what about the energy consumption of a brand new 8-story building? That's got to be a challenge, right?
It is. But they're really pulling out all the stops when it comes to energy efficiency. The building's designed to minimize energy use through things like smart lighting systems that adjust to natural light, high-performance insulation to keep the heat in or out depending on the season, and a super efficient heating and cooling system.
So they're covering all the bases. But it's not just about reducing energy use, right? They're also generating their own clean energy.
Exactly. They're incorporating renewable energy sources, and get this, they're even installing what I called a biosolar roof.
Biosolar roof. Okay, now you have to explain that one. I've never even heard of a biosolar roof.
So imagine this. It's a green roof, covered in vegetation, but integrated right into that green roof are solar panels.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's like a double whammy of sustainability.
Exactly. And it's not just about the energy. Those green roofs also help regulate the building's temperature, reduce stormwater runoff, and even improve air quality. It's a win-win-win all around.
I am seriously impressed. It sounds like they've thought of everything. But let's be realistic for a moment. Achieving net zero carbon emissions in a building of this size, right in the middle of London, That's got to be incredibly difficult. Did they hit any snags along the way?
Well, yeah, not every ambitious project goes off without a hitch, right? The planning documents do mention that hitting those targets, especially with all the new building regulations, is no easy feat. They did have to make some tough choices.
I can imagine. Give us an example. What kind of tough choices did they have to make?
Well, for instance, they really wanted to do a site-wide heating system, but it just wasn't feasible in this context. But they're not giving up on the idea. They future-proof the building so that they can connect to a district heating network if one becomes available in the future.
That's smart. It's like they're saying, we're doing everything we can right now, but we're also keeping an eye on the future and adapting as new technologies and infrastructure come online. That's what I call forward thinking.
It is. And they're not letting up on the solar energy front either. They actually expanded the area for photovoltaic panels and, of course, incorporated that biosolar tech we talked about, really squeezing every drop of efficiency out of the design.
They're going all out.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered recycled materials, renewable energy, future-proofing, and a biosolar roof that sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie. What else is on their sustainability checklist?
Well, they haven't just focused on the big picture stuff. They've also done a really deep dive into the nitty-gritty, like the impact on air quality, noise levels, and even the microclimate around the building.
It's like they're thinking on a microscopic level, too.
Yeah, they're really trying to cover all the bases. To minimize their impact, they're incorporating those green roofs we talked about. They're using a basement attenuation tank to manage rainwater runoff, and they're even going as far as calculating the building's urban greening factor. Their goal is to exceed the target set for mostly commercial developments.
It's pretty incredible how much detail they've put into this. They really are trying to walk the walk, not just talk the talk when it comes to sustainability. But here's the million-dollar question. Does all of this eco-friendliness, does it compromise the building's design?
It's a good question, and it's one a lot of people ask, right? Can a building be both beautiful and sustainable?
Right, because nobody wants a building that's good for the planet but looks like a giant compost heap.
Exactly. But in this case, the architectural analysis actually praises the building's modern elegance and visual appeal. They do suggest some refinements, though.
Oh, interesting. What kind of refinements are they suggesting?
Well, they recommend playing around with more materials and textures on the facade to make it a bit more visually interesting. They also think it could benefit from more clearly defined storefront elements to better engage with pedestrians at street level. And of course, there's the whole glass thing.
Yes, the glass. Beautiful, but it can be a bit of a heat magnet.
Exactly. They're pointing out that all that glass, while it looks stunning, could increase solar heat gain in the building. So they recommend incorporating some shading devices, to mitigate that effect.
So even with a project this ambitious, this forward-thinking, there's always room for improvement, always something to learn and tweak.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of sustainable design. It's an ongoing process, a constant evolution. It's not about checking off boxes. It's about always striving to do better, to minimize our impact as our understanding of sustainability grows.
Well said. Okay, so they've clearly gone above and beyond on the sustainability front. But we can't forget about that other big piece of the puzzle, those heritage concerns. How are they addressing the whole demolition and a conservation area issue?
It's a sensitive topic for sure, but you can tell from the planning documents that they took those concerns seriously. They didn't just barge in with their modern vision. They really took the time to understand the potential impact of the new building on those surrounding conservation areas.
So they were willing to listen, to engage with the concerns of the community and heritage groups.
Oh, absolutely. They even created visual simulations from different viewpoints to really assess how the new building would fit in with the existing streetscape.
Let's go the extra mile.
Yeah.
It shows a real commitment to finding a solution that works for everyone.
And they didn't stop at just listening. They actually made some big changes to the design based on the feedback they got. For example, they lowered the overall height of the building to lessen its visual impact on the historic surroundings. They also incorporated more greenery to help soften the lines of the modern structure and create a more harmonious transition with the older buildings nearby.
So they were willing to compromise, to meet the heritage folks halfway.
Exactly. And there's one more gesture that really stood out to me. They've promised to reinstate the original building's coat of arms on the new facade.
Wow, that's a lovely touch, like a symbolic bridge between the old and the new.
It is. It shows that they understand that progress doesn't have to erase the past. You can have both.
It's a delicate balance, for sure. Modernization and preservation, two forces that are often at odds. It's a conversation happening in so many cities around the world, And there's no easy answer.
You're telling me. But it's a conversation worth having, and 27 Savile Row is a great case study.
It really is. Okay, before we move on, there's one more piece of this puzzle I'm dying to explore, that Bespoke Tailors Academy. Let's dive into that right after this.
Okay, so we've covered sustainability, we've untangled the heritage debate, and we've explored the innovative design. But I gotta say, the thing that really makes this project sing for me is that Bespoke Tailors Academy, it's not just a feature, it feels like a mission statement.
You hit the nail on the head. It really shows they get it,
Yeah.
That this isn't just about redeveloping a building, it's about investing in the very soul of Savile Row, that legacy of craftsmanship that's been passed down for generations. It's like they're saying, hey, Savile Row is more than just a street name. It's a living, breathing embodiment of bespoke tailoring.
Hmm.
And they're making sure it stays that way. And it sounds like the council was fully on board with that vision.
Oh yeah, big time. The planning documents actually highlight that academy as a key reason for their approval. They see it as crucial to protecting that whole Savile Row vibe. They even have a fancy term for it, the Savile Row Special Policy Area. And get this, they secured a commitment from the developers to provide that space to the London Academy of Bespoke rent-free for 40 years.
40 years rent-free. Now that's putting your money where your mouth is. It shows they're serious about nurturing the future of bespoke tailoring.
Absolutely. And can you imagine what that means for the Academy? A state-of-the-art facility right in the heart of Savile Row where aspiring tailors can learn from the best, where tradition and innovation can collide. I read that Victoria Townsend, the founder, is just ecstatic about it.
As she should be. It's a dream come true to have that kind of support and a space to really cultivate the next generation of craftspeople.
It really is. In that news article, she talks about how it'll open up so many doors, more bursaries for aspiring tailors, more apprenticeships, even opportunities for new bespoke tailoring businesses to get their start. It's a win-win for everyone involved.
It's a fantastic example of how a development project can have a real ripple effect, not just on the physical landscape, but on the cultural fabric of a place.
Exactly. It's a reminder that development doesn't have to be at odds with tradition, that sometimes those two things can work together to create something truly special.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners today? What have we learned from diving deep into this fascinating project at 27 Savile Row?
I think it shows us that progress doesn't have to come at the cost of history, that we can find ways to honor our past while still embracing the future.
It's about finding that sweet spot, that balance between preservation and innovation. And it's a conversation that's happening in cities all over the world as we try to figure out how to adapt and grow while still holding on to what makes each place unique.
Absolutely. And 27 Savile Row is a brilliant case study. It's a testament to the power of collaboration, of creative thinking, and of a genuine commitment to preserving those things that make a place special.
And the story isn't over yet. As construction starts and that new building begins to take shape, it'll be fascinating to see how it all comes together in reality.
Right. Will those sleek, modern lines really harmonize with that historic Savile Row charm? Will that Tailors Academy spark a whole new wave of passion for bespoke tailoring?
Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, 27 Savile Row is a place where tradition and innovation are going to meet head-on. It's a microcosm of London's ever-evolving identity.
And that's something worth paying attention to, for sure.
Absolutely. So to our listeners, we leave you with this. Take a look around your own city, your own neighborhood. What stories do the buildings tell? How do the old and new coexist? What's being preserved and what's being reimagined?
It's a fascinating journey of discovery, and it's happening all around us.
So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those eyes peeled for the unexpected. Until next time, happy exploring.